So up until this point in every one of our characters that we've looked at, these unexpected good news, they've all been individual people. And so we had Zechariah by himself at the altar of incense, and he receives good news. And then we have Elizabeth, this old woman who gets this amazing good news that she is going to conceive for the first time. And then there's Mary, unwed virgin teenager, who gets this news, oh my gosh, you are going to carry the Son of God. But here, today, this text is the first time that the good news comes to a group of people, to shepherds, living in their fields, watching over flocks by night. Why did God choose shepherds? I mean, shepherds in first century, they were kind of bad news. Like, they were the rough and tough cowboys, like on the show Yellowstone. They were the ones that lived away from the villages, that most people in the villages didn't know what really went on out there and didn't want to know what went on. They were seen and not heard. No one went to them for advice. No one went to them to ask them how they should live their lives. They lived under the sky and they were far away from normal life. Their job was to keep the sheep that were necessary for food, but even more importantly, those sheep were necessary for temple worship. All those sheep that they were watching over, one day someone would buy them and would then offer them at the temple as a sacrifice before God. So let's put ourselves in the field that night. We need to recognize that not all of the shepherds had to be of one mind. So there were shepherds there that night that were really focused on doing their trade super well. They were busy with the day-to-day tasks of life, keeping those sheep. Maybe you're a shepherd like that. Or maybe you're a shepherd that's just watching out. You're the protector, watching out for bandits and wolves, doing everything you possibly can to keep your property and your people safe. Or maybe you're a shepherd that finds yourself kind of yawning and kind of bored with this sheep keeping. You're daydreaming your way through life. I want you to hear this, that we know there were different types present, and the angel came and spoke to all of them. God showed up to them right where they were living, right where they worked. Isn't it? It's so interesting to me that it wasn't on a mountaintop. It wasn't in the depths of the valleys of despair. It wasn't when someone was away at camp or someone was on a vacation when things are quieter. No, it was in the fields where they were living and working. Don't y'all want God just to show up right where we live and work? I think we all believe that God does work in the world on a macro level. Especially if you were to talk to someone that was maybe feeling hopeless or someone that doesn't believe in God, you would assure them our God is at work. God, from a God perspective, this 10 million foot view looks out and we know that God is somehow working the kingdom. All things are working towards justice, peace, unity, love, all those amazing things. We believe that big scale. But do we believe it here? Do we believe it for our lives, our families, our neighborhoods, right where we live and work? Because we hope God is at work right in our lives. This is what the shepherds teach us, friends, that just was ordinary shepherds. And I imagine that every one of those shepherds wasn't expecting it. They weren't like watching out for God to show up like this. To them, they're the cowboys. The author is intentional to tell us that they weren't just in the fields living. It says that they were keeping watch. They were alert. They were awake and looking. And so when the shepherds are looking, whether it be for like a wolf or a bandit, someone coming to steal those sheep, all of a sudden before them is an angel and the glory of the Lord in full regalia shows up and tells them, I have this good news of great joy for all people. It's in their everyday life that God comes into and gives them the good news. This is how God works the majority of the time in our lives, y'all. It's not on a mountaintop. It's not in the depths of despair. It's just while we're living in the fields, watching over our flocks. So are we watching for it? After the angel gives the shepherds the good news, there had to have been a shepherd that didn't believe it, that was like, well, I don't know about that. I mean, what are we supposed to do with the sheep? Like, we can't just go with haste. We have to protect our sheep. I mean, we have a delivery that's scheduled to bring to Herod next week. We can't just up and leave all of this property that we have. I think this is really good news, again, because I know within this room and in our families and our communities that there are some people who are the naysayers about God doing work in our life right now. You're one of those that maybe is feeling like, the times when God was at work in my life were when I was younger, or when I was married, or when I had young children, or when I finally didn't have young children. This is what's happening here. This is like the church. And I know that there are some that feel like, I don't know if I want to go with haste and see this good thing. Well, don't worry, because in the church, just like that night, I imagine, there are people that are going to grab your hand. There are people that are going to pick up when you're feeling down, and they're going to say, let's go. Let's go. And it says that they go, and they go with haste. They just go. And when they arrive, they do the most un-shepherd-like thing. Because shepherds were to be seen and not heard. They get before, we see the manger, and there's Mary, and she's holding this baby. And look at verse 17, what happens. When they saw this, they made known what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds told them. They shared with the angel what the angel had said to them. They tell everyone all that had been told, and I missed this before. The good news that came to Zechariah, couldn't tell anyone. The good news that came to Elizabeth, she went into seclusion. The good news that came to Mary, she was quickly taken away by her soon-to-be husband to a little town in Bethlehem. It was the messengers chosen to share the message were just those shepherds, the first evangelists, the ones to come and say, there is this good news for all the people. We're ordinary, everyday humans just like us, and this is such good news. And then they looked at Mary and they said, that Savior that you hold in your arms, it is more than just about you. It is more than just about this little tiny town. It is bigger. This story, this good news is for all people. It was the shepherds that first made it known, and I'm so glad it was the shepherds and not the tax collector or the royalty. It wasn't the scribe. It wasn't the priest. It was the shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. This is good news for us because I hope you know that everyone gets to make the good news of Jesus known. It's not just the pastor. It's not just the church leader, the theologian, the one who's been in every Bible study or the one who has their life all together. The good news of Jesus comes through unexpected, ordinary people living ordinary lives. And the good news of Jesus can come through all of us. So are we watching for it? And then do we have the courage to make it known? You see, the shepherds are the characters in the Advent story who receive the good news, which all the characters in the Advent story do. But they are the ones that have the courage to go and tell others about it. And when you look at what they had to tell, it wasn't anything beyond just what they had experienced in life. You don't have to have written up a beautiful sermon or have an incredible exegesis of a text. The shepherds experienced God in their everyday life, and they went and told people about it. And this is what I know about the way that God works in the world. All of us have moments where God surprises us right in our everyday work and in our everyday life. We don't have to go away on a retreat or go away on vacation or experience death or experience life. God is with us in the everyday. And y'all, our world needs more shepherds. Needs more shepherds who are watching out, watching. And then when God does come in their everyday life, has the courage and the hope to go and make that known to the world. May it be so in my life and in yours.